Hey everyone, it's Tricia McCannon and welcome to part one of Return of the Divine Sophia and Mary Magdalene. This very first part is about the initiation of the Great Mother, and I think you're really going to love it. But I'm going to just very briefly take you through just a little outline of where we're going to be going over the next 6 lessons. In part 2, which will be our next section, we're going to go into the hidden history of the Divine Feminine that goes back 230,000 years, if not further back. And of course, most of this history has been wiped away and most of us know nothing about it. So it's a pretty amazing presentation where we really give you the archaeology, the anthropology, the history, and how the Divine Mother, the God, the Mother, got split into a million pieces and how she became suppressed so that most people don't know anything about her today and how we fell out of balance. So that's what part 2 is about. Part 3 is really one of my favorite subjects, which is the lost symbols of the goddess. As many of you know, I'm a teacher of the mysteries and a student of the mysteries. And the mysteries taught with these amazing hermetic symbols. And these symbols actually act as keys and codes to awaken your consciousness. And so this whole presentation is about identifying those hidden symbols so that when you look at paintings, you look at artwork throughout the centuries, you know when you see these symbols that the artists that painted them were actually initiates. They actually were encoding information within the paintings. And even today, we have many great artists, painters out there who actually are bringing these symbols back into the forefront once again. But by knowing these symbols, it gives you codes and keys to be able to open these higher doors of awakening. In part 3, 4, and 5, we're going to get into Mary Magdalene. Part 4 is actually all about Mary Magdalene herself, what we know about her, and then the things that have been hidden from us about her personal history. I really love this presentation because you will walk away understanding that Mary Magdalene was thought of by the people who knew her, by the Gnostics, which were the early Christians, really as the feminine Christ or the divine Sophia in incarnated form, much as Jesus was thought of as the male aspect of the Son of God. She was thought of as the daughter of God. So this is a beautiful presentation for that. In part 5, gosh, it looks like my numbering system's off. We have a whole conversation about the mysteries of the Holy Grail. What the heck was that whole Holy Grail that some, 2,000 years later, we don't seem to be able to let go of? Why were these legends of King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table and what they were searching for so very, very important? Because, of course, they were encoded with hermetic symbolism, that if you have the keys to decode it, you begin to understand what they were actually really searching for. So this is a really beautiful presentation in part 5. And then in part 6, we actually get into the secret teachings of Mary Magdalene. There were over 250 sayings that Mary Magdalene had that the Gnostics collected. And many of them are just as profound as the things that Jesus had to say. And of course, I share some of this in my book, Return of the Divine Sophia. But in this amazing presentation, we're actually going to get into the path of mastery that Jesus and Mary Magdalene were teaching and how it's actually connected with the way of the chalice. So let's begin now with part 1. Let's ask the question first off, why is it important to us in modern day times with all the craziness of our civilization for us to reconnect with the divine feminine? Why is it so important? Well, in truth, it's because anyone can observe that the universe exists in a balance. We need the masculine, we need the feminine. They're meant to be partners with one another, not adversarial. We have the in-breath, we have the out-breath. It doesn't work for us to always breathe out, does it? It doesn't work for us to always breathe in. There's a yin and a yang in the universe, and the ancients understood that these were in a constant flow and a constant dance, and it was this dance that keeps the universe alive and in balance. And this divine marriage, if you will, this sacred marriage, is key to what Jesus and Mary Magdalene were actually teaching. It wasn't really just about sex. It was about an inner alchemy of transformation, consciousness, and awareness that opens us up, allowing us to develop and awaken our spiritual gifts and to pull back the veils into the higher worlds. And so what has happened, of course, in our culture is that the masculine and feminine have been out of balance for probably about 2,500 to 3,000 years. And we're at a time now where the divine feminine is reawakening with the Me Too movement, and I think there's a British equivalent that's something like Time for Us or Time Out, or there are movements of women awakening around the world. And, these women are saying it's not all right for us to be silenced. It's not all right for us to be forgotten. It's not all right for us to be used as or abused. Instead, we really have to be honored and treated with the same respect that the sacred masculine should be. And so we need to create partnership models. So most of us don't have a background in the sacred feminine. We weren't taught it in school. We sure weren't taught it in Sunday school. We weren't taught it in religions. So how can we learn it? So this is one of the reasons that I'm so passionate about this subject, and why I put together this amazing presentation, why I've tried to ground it for you in history and give you the keys and codes to be able to bring it into fullness in your own life. So the first thing that we have to do is we have to discover that piece of ourselves that basically we've disowned, or we've abused, or we've hidden, or it's been suppressed, or we've disempowered. And of course, the part that's been disempowered is the sacred feminine. And consequently, we've had a masculine dominant culture, a patriarchal culture that, although it has many good things, it also has an imbalance to it. This is one of the reasons we have war and aggression and the raping and pillaging of people and animals and nations and the earth herself. And so in order for us to get back into balance, this is a part we have to discover and re-empower. So we can come back into a sacred balance within ourselves and within our societies and within the world. So this is really the path that Jesus and Mary were teaching, which was that middle path. And it's one that I think is really important for us to discover and to live by in this life. In truth, it may be the only thing that's going to bring this crazy, war-hungry, politically challenging world back into balance. When we start making decisions, as they say in the Native American culture, that will be positive in their effect for our children, our grandchildren, and for 7 generations forward. So we are now, in this next presentation, going to be taking a look at the hidden history of the Sacred Mother. But today, we're going to begin an initiation into the discovery of the mysteries, the great spiritual mysteries, how they were linked with the divine feminine. And here we see an image of Isis. And Isis, of course, was the I am presence of the divine mother. Her Egyptian name was actually Aset, but we call her Isis, and that's how she was known throughout most of the world. And of course, it's very challenging today that the patriarchy has declared a war on ISIS when ISIS isn't even the name of that terrorist group. It's called ISIL. And that we've had a war on Terra. And of course, Terra, T-A-R-A, is the divine mother. It's the earth herself. And all this is kind of laid in by the patriarchy for in our subconscious, and it actually affects the way that we think. Just like when we think heaven's up and hell is below us, it causes us to disregard the sacredness of the earth that is below our feet. So in the ancient world, in order to discover these mysteries and these secrets, it was called pulling back the veils of Isis. And this is a lovely image from Manly P. Hall's book that he wrote in the 1930s. I, Isis, am all that has been, that is or shall be. No mortal man hath ever me unveiled. And here we're talking about the fact that this is the divine presence, the divine intelligence of the Creator herself behind the visible world of nature. So nature was her clothing, that was her raiment, that was her gown. And there are many really important symbols that you see here, the balance scales of justice or truth, the sound, the cistern. This is an instrument of music that is the awakening of the universe. Here we have the grapes of plenty. This is also connected with Osiris, her husband, and later with the lineage of Jesus and the Merovingian kings. You know, the crown with the fleur-de-lis, the 3 petals on the top of her head. We'll see a fleur-de-lis shortly, and you'll be able to see the solar nimbus that actually is the serpent biting its tail, that is called the aurora boreas, which has to do with the cycles of time, the beginning and the ending of cycles, how we end one age, like we're coming to an end of an age now, and then we begin a new cycle, a new age. The destruction of one world is the birth or the beginning of a new one. Now we see at her feet, the fruit which I have brought forth is the sun. So we're talking about creation itself. So this marks Isis as a solar goddess, and she's one of the few goddesses that is both solar and lunar. Normally, as we're going to see, the goddess was thought of as lunar or receptive, and the masculine was thought of as solar. But she is one of the few that has both lunar and solar aspects. And I'll be introducing you to at least 1 or 2 others in this presentation today. Now we see these serpents at her feet. And these serpents, of course, are linked to the Kundalini energy that rises up the spine, that's connected to the Ida and the Pingala, or the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems, that all really has to do with the process of enlightenment. You know, those are like entwined serpents going up the central nervous system. So we have a triune nervous system. Most people don't really know that, but the ancients did, and they taught things in this balance. So we see here with these columns are very important. You have a column to the left, column to the right, the left-hand path, the right-hand path, but the path of mastery is in the middle. It's the middle path, it's the middle way. This was taught all throughout Egypt and the mystery schools. And here we have, of course, Isis veiling herself, and nature is the veil. So by studying nature with respect, we actually begin to penetrate her secrets. We begin to see how the swirl of the atoms is the same as the swirl of the galaxies. We begin to understand how the veins in the leaf are the same as the veins in our hands. We begin to see the correspondences. And in fact, you know, this gets into a deeper level of teaching hermetics, and perhaps, you know, I teach this within the mystery school, the Phoenix Farm Mystery School. Perhaps with Sacred You, I'll wind up doing an Egyptian course sometime in the next year that you'll be able to take, where you'll learn even more about hermetics, but you're going to learn a great deal in this course. So I love this. This is actually a statue. Is this incredible, of Isis? I mean, how these artists actually did it is just unbelievable. So the veils of Isis are the covering over the divine. And so it's hard for us to see God, isn't it? God is, infinite, everywhere, visible and invisible. Same for the goddess. In her highest form, she is God. She is the female aspect of God. And so most of us can only glimpse her face behind the veil. And a beautiful face it is as well. Now in Egypt, there are a lot of hermetic glyphs that are very interesting to contemplate. This is Isis, and you can always tell because she has one of two crowns on, the 3 steps of initiation that look like a throne, or sometimes you'll see her with the crown of Hathor, and we'll be taking a look at that during the course of this workshop. And this is Nephthys. Nephthys was her sister, and her crown kind of looks like it's a symbol for the watchtower, basically. And of course, Magdalene means watchtower, as we're going to discover once we get into learning more about Mary Magdalene, who was actually initiated as a full priestess of Isis. Now, these girls represent the lunar and the solar aspects of the divine feminine. Just as there are lunar and solar masculines, and you could say men are solar, women are lunar. That's an easy way to look at it. But basically, they're talking once again about the fact that there are these 2 paths. There's a left hemisphere of the brain and a right hemisphere of the brain. And the path of mastery is a path between them. Now, this pillar is called the Tet, or the Djet, and it was always associated with the tree of life. Was also associated with Osiris, the Lord of Light, the Christ of his day, the male Christ. And of course, here's the symbol of the sun here. We can think of this as a halo, or the solar nimbus, or the light. And here, of course, we have our 2 friendly little snakes. Here's the sympathetic and the parasympathetic nervous systems that must be activated to move up the central column of the central nervous system to awaken that halo, that inner light. So we begin by understanding that both Isis and Osiris, the male and the female Christ, were both placed in this central position. In other words, it's not just the man. It's not just God the Father. It's not just God the Mother. It is God the Mother and God the Father. And I really love this. This is Isis, and again, we see the solar nimbus on her head. We see these veils. Now later, when we get into looking at Mary, we'll see that Mary has inherited these same veils, including even the color of her dress, which was Isis blue. And many times you'll see Isis carrying some kind of looks like a plant or something, but it's got 3 branches to it. And we'll again see this get translated to Mary as a lily, or a 3-pronged lily, or the fleur-de-lis. Now, this is the Freemason expression of how this symbolism in hermetics has been passed down through the ages. Here are 2 columns. We know what those mean. Here are 2 winged angels. That's certainly Isis and Nephthys. And of course, this is the path of mastery. It's like we must make friends, really, with our other part. It would be nice if they had made both one a male and one a female, but that's really where we're going. This, even the square and the compass, which are classic Masonic symbols, represent being on the square or being truthful. You know, are you square with me? Are you telling me the truth? That's what the square means. And the compass is describing the circumference of the universe, or the world. Now, in order to basically make this journey, and these Sephiroths, these actually represent Sephiroths on the tree of life. And the tree of life is, again, a very deep subject that was a hermetic symbol for this path of mastery. So, in order to take this path, we must master our 5-fold nature: air, earth, fire, and water, or the physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, with the etheric, the soul, the spirit part of us. And then, of course, we must open our 3rd eye. This is the symbol for the 3rd eye, in order to reach the inner adium, or the inner temple. This is the temple that lies within ourself, the deep self. And of course, initiates were taught to build through imagination first, and eventually through actual experience and soul travel, this connection with the inner planes, or the inner temple, and to awaken the 3rd eye, to make a connection with God from darkness into light. And we see the symbols of the sun, the moon, and the shining star here. All these are very powerful hermetic symbols that give us keys to mastery if we know how to interpret them. So it's the union, really, of these two expressions that leads us to oneness, that leads us to discovering our clairvoyance, our clairaudience, our clairsentience, our ability to heal others, our spiritual gifts. And we see here, of course, the caduceus beautifully presented, the symbol for healing. And we see here again the threefold goddess with this caduceus of energies going up, and the white dove, another great symbol of the Holy Spirit or the Divine Mother. So all of this symbology is talking about moving from the mundane world into the inner realms, getting access, not just in your dream state, but actually conscious access into being able to work in these inner levels. And this, of course, was the aim of every spiritual initiate. And you see again this initiate in the middle of the two columns. She's got the balance scales of Isis, and she's got the caduceus staff. So we're really talking about leaving the mundane insanity of the world behind and really pulling back the veil to enter the world of truth, the world of spirit, the world of the mysteries. And again, this very beautiful symbolism, we have the two columns. Isis's feet are literally on the Ark of the Covenant. We understand now what the 5-star of the pentagon or pentagram means. We understand what the caduceus and Isis and Nephthys down here, and the two eyes that awaken, the third eye in the middle. And we see, of course, that she's veiled. But what's also interesting to notice is she's wearing a crown that's made of horns, like it's literally like a crescent moon. And as we're going to discover, the moon was actually one of the most powerful of all the symbols for the Divine Mother. Now, this is a beautiful tarot card, but we want to again analyze the symbolism. In the Tree of Life, the moon is the next sphere up from the physical earth. The physical earth was called Malkuth. They call it the kingdom, but it's basically down here where we are, where we're trying to figure out what to do. But in order to get onto the tree, you have to go into Yesod. And Yesod is the lunar sphere. It's the sphere of the feelings, of emotions, because without emotions, we can't learn compassion, can we? Compassion is essential for spiritual awakening. That's the message, really, of the goddess, and it's the message of the Christ. So this sphere also represents the astral plane. In other words, being able to gain access into the inner realms. Here we have Anubis in the Egyptian teaching. He was like kind of the guardian of the door or the keeper of the ways. And when a person died, he escorted the soul like a companion, like a faithful dog, all the way into the halls of Amente, or the halls of heaven. And we see on this, it looks almost like a coffin, doesn't it? Very interesting, on the waters of life. But what's inscribed here is Kepra. Kepra was the scare beetle, and it represents the creator, God the creator. Why would they choose a dung beetle to be a hermetic symbol for the creator? Well, because dung beetles lay their eggs in dung. And so they're the only creature that we know that can sort of bring life from, manure, so to speak. So who can do that but God? God's the only one that can bring life from, the refuse of nature. And so this, of course, is talking about going into the inner realms and accessing that. Now, we also see the same symbolism in the solar card. This is the card for the sun. And what do we have here? We have the male and the female, and the path of union lies in the middle between the two. So it's this balance of male and female that we're seeking in our own lives. When we're too yin, we're not motivated enough. Too female. When we're too male, we're too aggressive. We're running around. We're so busy. We don't take time to check in with our inner selves and connect with our higher spiritual self. And so again, these are all hermetic symbols by old artists, new artists, and artists in between, that are talking about this portal of discovery, a portal of awakening that allows us to awaken our inner sight and our inner hearing, our inner gifts, our inner knowing, and to gain access to the true essence of who we really are. In fact, when we look at Greece, the temples of Greece that actually were derived from the temples of Egypt, over the lintel of the Oracle of Delphi, the very first commandment was to know thyself. That's the very first rule of enlightenment.